Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to break down a couple of really critical topics that affect pretty much every workplace: violence and sexual harassment. We're going to be digging into the official guidelines and research to get a handle on the problems and, most importantly, the solutions. Okay, so here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll nail down what workplace violence actually is. Then we'll look at the huge impact it has and what can be done about it. After that, we'll shift gears to sexual harassment, what it is, all the different forms it can take, and finally, wrap up with how we can all work towards building a safer environment. So, first things first, when we say workplace violence, what are we actually talking about? Well, it's probably a much bigger idea than you think. I mean, just to get a sense of the scale here, look at this number. In fields like healthcare, violence was behind a massive 13% of all days off work due to injury back in 2013. Now, yeah, the data is a little old, but the guidance at the time showed this was a growing issue. This isn't some small thing. It has huge, real-world consequences. And here's the official definition, which is so important. Notice it says physically and psychologically damaging actions. That's the key right there. The harm isn't always something you can see. And what's really interesting here is that this shows you the whole spectrum. It could be a threatening email, it could be nonstop verbal harassment, a physical fight, or in the absolute worst case scenario, even homicide. It's not just one thing. And, it probably won't surprise you that some jobs just come with a higher risk. Basically, anyone who's out there dealing with the public, handling cash, or working in security or care, they're really on the front lines. These roles need a whole different level of awareness and protection. So, we've defined the problem. Now let's talk about the fallout. Because, this kind of abusive behavior, it doesn't just happen in a bubble. It sends out these shockwaves that hit the individual and the entire company. And this lays out that two-sided damage perfectly. On one side, the employer struggles to find and keep good people, the costs of hiring go way up, and morale just tanks. But for the person going through it, the cost is so personal. We're talking serious mental stress, anxiety, and just a total loss of confidence. Okay, so the situation is definitely serious, but, and this is a big but, it's not hopeless. The good news is there are really clear, systematic ways for employers to get a handle on this, and honestly, it's their duty to do so. And you can see here, governments and safety groups put out these detailed guides. The message is always the same. The best tool we have isn't reacting after the fact, it's preventing it from ever happening in the first place. So, it's got to be this whole 5-step strategy, right? It all starts with making sure everyone's on the same page about what abuse even is. Then, you absolutely have to have a safe, clear way for people to report things. From there, you get proactive. You look for risks and put things in place to stop them. You train your people. And finally, and this is so important, you provide support and aftercare for anyone who's been affected. And a huge piece of this whole puzzle is just writing things down, documentation. In a lot of places, regulations like RIDOR in the UK actually make it a legal requirement to record every single injury, no matter how minor it seems. This creates a record, and it ensures that there's accountability. All right, let's pivot now to our second topic, which is obviously closely related: sexual harassment. And just like with workplace violence, it has a really specific definition that we've got to understand if we're going to spot it and stop it. So here's the official definition. I want you to look really closely at those first two words, any unwanted. That's it. That is the absolute heart of the matter. If the attention or the conduct is unwanted by the person on the receiving end, it has crossed the line. Period. The guidelines actually break this down into two types. First, you've got sexual coercion. This is that classic awful quid pro quo thing where your job or a promotion is dangled in front of you in exchange for sexual favors. Then there's sexual annoyance, which is all the stuff that makes the workplace feel hostile or intimidating, even if it's not directly tied to you keeping your job. And to get even more specific, it helps to know that harassment can pop up in 5 pretty distinct forms. And if you can recognize them, you're in a much better position to stop them. And this table just lays it all out so clearly. It can be verbal, right, like gross jokes or comments. It can be nonverbal, like leering or making suggestive gestures. It can be visual, showing someone inappropriate pictures. It can be psychological, like someone just relentlessly asking you out when you've said no. And of course, it can be physical, which can be anything from unwanted touching all the way to assault. So, we've defined workplace violence. We've defined sexual harassment. We've seen the kind of damage they do. And the solutions for both really point us in the same direction. So what's the big takeaway here? This quote from the Code of Practice really says it all. The best, most effective strategy is to deal with this stuff right then and there, on site. You have to confront it immediately, and like it says, nip it in the bud before it has a chance to grow into something worse. And let's just be crystal clear about something. This isn't about company perks. It's not about creating a nice place to work. Having a workplace that is free from violence and harassment is a fundamental right. It's not a privilege, it's a right for every single person who shows up to do their job. So that leaves us with one last thing to think about. Based on everything we've just talked about, what is the one concrete step, the single most important thing your workplace could do tomorrow to make it a safer space for you and for everyone else?